What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the BREWtally Speaking Podcast, the official podcast of MetalNexus.net, where you can get all your show reviews, concert reviews, and so much more. And with me this evening is Daniel Terry. How are you doing?
I am live and in the flesh. How are you doing tonight, John?
I am also live and partially fleshy.
I'm all fleshy.
I feel like I'm more. It's not Patrick. What's his name? Not Squidward. Dr. Zoidberg. I feel I'm more fleshy like Dr. Zoidberg.
That's valid.
Yeah, I figured maybe they get a pop out of you. Maybe not.
Maybe not. I have no sense of humor, so you got to really hold my hand through a lot of this stuff.
Fair enough. You know whose hand we don't have to hold through this is our guest, Neal, the guitar player for DevilDriver. Some of you might know him as the guitar player for Burn Halo, if you remember that band.
I vaguely remember that band, not going to lie.
Well, I mean, I think a lot of people were... If you were super big into 18 Visions, but then kind of fell off on their last record for it being too pop rock or cock rock, I think really was the term that a lot of people were using back then. It was kind of that resurgence of 80s hair metal in your metalcore. I mean, Atreyu was kind of going through it, and Black Veil Brides and a few other bands were. But I definitely think if you wanted more Until the Ink Runs Out, style 18 Visions, you definitely were probably long gone at this point. So the idea of something just more rock from James Hart didn't really appease you.
Yeah, probably not.
Speaking of, I actually just saw that James is recording what appears to be some new 18 Visions.
Really?
I mean, last time he was posting videos of him, recording stuff or recording gear in front of him, it turned out to be the new 18 Visions record that we got a couple years ago. So, by all accounts, it sounds like it, and kind of, giving a little bit away of another guest we have coming up. I talked to Biggie, the co-owner of Good Fight Management, who also has 18 Visions on their roster, and I straight up the last question I asked was so what's going on with this 18 Visions record? When are we getting it? And he goes, the guys are doing stuff. So officially, unofficially, they're doing stuff. So we can at least hopefully look forward to maybe a new 18 Visions record, maybe by the end of this year. Who knows?
I'd be pretty excited about that. I mean, not going to lie, I have been a massive 18 Visions fan since way back in the day, back whenever they were really, really, really heavy. Which is kind of a trope for me, I know.
I will definitely say, something we talked about in a different episode is me hanging out with Amigo the Devil and his lady Alicia, who I actually, in talking with her throughout that day, she kept mentioning tours she was on, people she knows, James Hart being one of them, and something she had kind of mentioned was just, all these people from that Orange County, West Coast hardcore scene. And I didn't really put too much together. And then at the very end of the evening, she's like, well, yeah, I'm married to, or I'm divorced from, but I still have his last name, but it's Mikey Way from My Chemical Romance. And I was like, get the fuck out of here.
Seriously?
Yeah, and she was the bass player from First to Last. So I was just like, holy shit.
That is mind-blowing.
I know, and I almost wanted to be after I found all this stuff out, because I almost wanted to have her on anyway, because I was like, oh, she tour manages, she travels with Amigo and does a lot of stuff, and it sounded like she has spent a lot of time in the industry, so I was just like, oh, dude, I'd love to have you on, thinking in my head, I'd love to have you on, another woman that's been in the industry for a long time, why wouldn't I want to have you on, because, I like having women on the podcast to tell their side of the story, and I always love having behind-the-scenes people on, but then once I found out all this other shit, I was just like, oh, well, now it's just going to sound like I'm trying to ask you to come on for these things, not for everything else that you've done in the industry. But maybe when they have some time, I will broach the subject with her at some point. But no, she's also super into wrestling and all that kind of stuff. But it was definitely a mind fuck up a thing. And then I was like, oh yeah, the new 18 Visions. And she was like, wait, there's a new 18 Visions record? And I was like, yeah, it came out 2 years ago.
Duh.
She had no idea, and I just kind of realized, I guess that is kind of how it goes. Some people aren't up to, a band was, oh, I fell off on this record, and don't even know that the band either broke up and or came back. But all of that aside, we're here to talk about DevilDriver, and you guys just did a DevilDriver episode. I don't think it's posted yet.
Yeah, it hasn't come out yet.
Well, maybe by the time this comes out, we'll work together for once and actually do a co-release on the same day. Yeah,
that'd be kind of cool. I think we release on the same day anyway, don't we? Usually on Sundays, so that works out pretty well. To jump on that, we did a full discography discussion on DevilDriver, and so I definitely was going through my week a lot more aggressively than normal, which was a lot of fun. And Yeah, I'm pretty excited. Some of the content in this interview, just being, learning more about the new record, the big double release that's coming out. It'll be interesting coming off of their covers record, which we actually talked about pretty in depth on the other show, and I think it's gonna be a lot of fun, like with the concept that I don't know about fun. It's gonna be dark and depressing and evil and very devilish or whatever. But I definitely am a fan of there being a little bit more. What's the word?
The bird.
A little bit more depth to DevilDriver. It's not saying that they don't have depth, but to see them undertake a project like this is kind of interesting.
Well, what I thought was kind of interesting about it too is, DevilDriver isn't a band that are slouches. Their output in the time frame that they have been a band, I would almost say it's right up there with fucking Machine Head. Like, they put out a record or a double record at times, and they just crank them out like every year and a half, 2 years. But in the last 3 years, we're gonna have technically four DevilDriver records. One is a covers record, which the way they went about doing that covers record it's basically like Neal said. It was basically like writing a whole fucking new record.
Yeah, it really was. Like he kind of went into it thinking like, oh, it's gonna be this is gonna be easy.
Yeah, psych.
Yeah, not so much, guy.
No. But it was a thing. I was kind of at least glad. I don't know how much of what the concept was about that he was supposed to tell us, but the fact that he did, and we kind of have more of an idea of what it's about, kind of has me really intrigued, because I think it's, like you said, I think it's going to be one of the more darker lyrically. Which I can't believe I'm saying that about a DevilDriver record, that there's some way to go darker than they have, but I guess here we are. We're on the precipice of this new, just brutal DevilDriver record that we're all anxiously awaiting.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it for sure, because I think that they really spoilers. I think that they definitely took a huge step forward with their most recent album.
Trust No One
being much more brutal than what they'd been doing before. They had kind of gone melodic, and I don't like my Devil Uber to be melodic. I like
your what?
My Devil Uber. It's my DevilDriver.
Oh,
yeah,
gotcha.
Whenever your Uber shows up,
yep.
Yeah, you're like, God, I just had the Uber driver from hell. Yeah, that was DevilDriver. So that horrible joke aside, I like DevilDriver to be heavy. I think Dez is like one of the most perfect aggressive vocalists out there, and I just want to hear him be aggressive. Not like he's ever busted into a whole bunch of clean choruses in DevilDriver or anything, but it definitely I like the music to match his voice.
Yeah. There are a couple of comments I want to make on that, but let's save those for after the interview. So without further ado, this is my conversation with Neal from DevilDriver, and we'll talk to you afterwards. So I had the pleasure of talking to Neal, guitarist of DevilDriver, and a slew of other bands from a lot of my youth. How are you doing? How are you doing this early afternoon?
Doing good, man. Just getting things rolling over here.
Yeah, you guys just rolled through on the Static X, DevilDriver, Dope. I think there's one other band I'm totally. Wednesday 13 and Raven Black. You guys just rolled through here in Grand Rapids, Michigan, to a sold out show, which I have to say, I haven't been in a room that sweaty in a long time.
Oh man, yeah, it's fortunately been the case for most of this tour, man. We're seeing record temperatures on stage, which means it's pretty hot out there too for everybody else. But it's good.
Yeah, no, most assuredly. Something I kind of wanted to hit on, your first record that you did with DevilDriver was Trust No One, and I know from watching the making of the record or whatever, some of the clips leading up to the release of the album, that a lot of people were like, oh, I don't really know how Neal's going to fit into this style and so forth. But I'll be goddamned if you haven't put out a shitload of content in a very short amount of time within the band between doing Trust No One, Outlaws covers record, and then now you have a double concept album getting ready to drop soon too. What the fuck's been going on?
I didn't intentionally plan on pushing the band, in that way. I think it just kind of happened once. I've always been a writer, and I've always wanted to do metal. So of course I jumped at the opportunity to be in the band. And then it just kind of, we wrote that first record, and it just gelled so well that I think it kind of it set a good precedence for the rest of the time. It's like, well, let's do this covers record while we have a little time. Well, that was super easy. Let's do the next record. Oh, let's make it a double record. Why not? We got the material, like it's, I wasn't consciously like, hey man, as soon as I join, we're just going to make sure we have an album every 6 months or something. It wasn't that, but, I'm just glad that they welcomed me in so quickly with writing.
Now, a lot of times we talk to people who have joined a band after, not being an original member or anything like that. And it's always kind of interesting having someone find their place, because sometimes, there's the core of who writes the material for the band, and that stays consistent. And then obviously you got to find your way, not only in a live setting, but in the studio as well. And so it's been kind of interesting to see that, they've really welcomed you into the fold and into the songwriting perspective so quickly. And I think it's definitely taken, at least, from what we have from Trust No One, really taken the band in a completely different, stratosphere at this point of just firing on all cylinders.
Oh yeah, thanks for saying that. That was my intention all along. I think one of the things I did have going for me is that the guy that I replaced, who's a great guitar player, Jeff Kendrick, he didn't do a lot of the writing, so it was kind of open to me, like, hey, if you want to. And I'd been friends with Dez for years before I joined the band, and he already knew that I was a writer, so that was an asset I think he was looking forward to as I joined. And as far as the live thing, that was a little more daunting because, as I said, Jeff's really good. He's got this great right hand, and a lot of people, he was in the band for 12 years, I think, so a lot of people are used to seeing him over there, at least initially. And I think it took a lot of getting used to for both the fans and me, because I play differently, I look different, it's a different band right now, than it was.
Kind of talking to this concept record that's eventually coming out this year. I always kind of find it interesting because, we're getting ready to talk to John from Baroness here pretty soon, and, kind of being immersed in kind of their concept with the chromatic themed records and so forth. It kind of was making me look at, what you're going to be doing on this concept record coming out. Did you guys write with the intention of like, hey, let's go for the big thing and try to do a concept, or was it just happenstance that by the time you guys wrote a collection of songs and Des kind of started putting lyrics to it, that's really where the theme started kind of being connected?
Definitely the latter, yeah. So the way our process is, we write all the music, and then Des will write lyrics and melody, if any, but patterns and things over it afterwards. And as we were writing, we were just like, we knew that we wanted to kind of, it's so cliche, but we wanted to push the envelope in which, like, we want some more dynamics, we want some more clean parts, we want some of the heavier parts, and it's got both, which could be polarizing, we'll see, but I love it. But yeah, as he started writing, this theme started appearing that it's mainly, I don't know how much he wants me to talk about it, which I guess is good for you because I'm just going to say something and get in trouble later possibly. But the main idea that was coming through was kind of the taking away of liberties and bondage of the human soul kind of things, and not political even. We're not talking about that, but we're talking about, just enslavement in history, things like this that were, and the wanting to break free of said stuff. And it just, nearly every song, like 20 of them, had something to do with that. It kept circling back for whatever reason for him. So that's where he's like, well, let's just make it a concept. We already doing a double record. Might as well throw another word on there that we can use as a buzz feed, That's it.
When he started kind of putting the lyrics to this, did you guys, as the band, kind of start going back into it and kind of adding little things to really tie because when I think of a concept album, I kind of think of it really being on vinyl and it being a really immersive experience. Like here's side A, here's side B, side C, side D, and everything kind of has its place. And there's even little nuances that kind of, according to how a band maybe even does the track listing, there's things that tie it even in together musically like that as well. Did you guys start doing that as well once the theme had kind of been set?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, there's definitely in the classical sense of an album, or say even a classical piece, you have themes that are reoccurring, and the same things happen in this. It might be in a different key, but we'll do the same little guitar line to kind of enunciate the point that we're still here, we're still talking about the same thing, even though the song is a different song on a different side, even the record. Yeah, we definitely explored, the possibility of themes, like not to just like we couldn't come up with ideas, but because we wanted it all to tie together better.
Awesome. Yeah. Having now been on this other side of it, where it's all done, it's completed, it's handed in, a lot of bands I think have the ambition that maybe, or as musicians, you want to maybe like try to take a crack at doing a concept album until you kind of think about how much work really goes into it. Now being on this side of it, is it something that you would like to do again down the road, or is this kind of like a one and done kind of deal for you?
Probably one and done. I mean, you definitely hit on something. It's just so much more work. It's fun work, but it's so much more work. It's, I'm used to, maybe 3 months max for doing a record from like having the basic ideas to getting in the studio and being done with it. Typically that's like 3.5 months with everything that I've ever been involved with. And this one, we took our time because we went on a few tours here and there in between the process, but we spent at least a year recording. And then we, like, as far as ironing everything out, we spent, that's another 4 months just getting our ideas and sitting down with the very, skeletal remnants of it and turning it into what it is. I didn't realize, fortunately at the time, I didn't realize how daunting a thing we had decided to do. But now looking back, yeah, I look forward to just doing the old 10, 12 track record, at least for a couple more after this one,
What is something about the process of either putting together a covers record where you're kind of completely reimagining how they sound, or doing basically a concept record? What's something from the process of either one that you learned from that kind of surprised you?
I wouldn't say. I guess I learned a little more from the country covers record in that, like I said, that the concept double record is it's all original songs, so it's just kind of like a normal record, just way bigger. The country record, though, I mean, it sounds easy on paper because anybody can do a cover if you kind of know, what you want to do. Just want it to be louder, so we'll add distortion here. But it's the original ideas. Like if you go listen to Drinkin' Don't Kill Me, like if Drinkin' Don't Kill Me, the original song sounds nothing like ours, so we had to make an entirely new song. We kept some of the lap steel themes that are in it. Besides that, the vocals are the same. But besides that, we had to write a completely new DevilDriver song, and I didn't expect to do that at the time. I was just like, the chorus, so we'll just make it louder, whatever. We'll have bigger drum fills. We'll add double bass. It's that simple, but it really wasn't.
Yeah. I think it was funny because when I was talking to Des pre the covers record coming out, I was kind of like, did everyone agree to do it because you all thought it was going to be very easy until you basically realized the way that you decided to do it was almost like writing a brand new record with the lyrics already done. So for Des, everything was easy.
Yeah. I mean, on his side, I think the unimagined part that he had to deal with was more the logisticals of getting all the guests and everything, because it's it's not like I'm not friends with anybody, but there's mainly Dez's friends that he got to come sing on the guest on the tracks,
Right. And
then having to deal with, how many songs are in there, 10, 11, I can't remember, but having to deal with all those people's schedules, I know was throwing him through a loop.
Kind of wanted to switch things up a bit.
Sure.
You're on the Static Rex run with Dope right now as well. And like I said, having gone to the show the other night, just couldn't help but be ensconced in nostalgia. 20 years of Felons and Revolutionaries, 20 years of Wisconsin Death Trip. and you guys have been busting out some Cold Chamber songs as of late too, and it just kind of makes me wonder, how has it been for you to kind of dip into maybe an era of music that, you know, maybe you weren't super versed in?
Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of hit it right on the head right there. I wasn't really. I was, of course, aware of nu metal and what it was doing at the time, but I wasn't like a huge Cold Chamber fan at the time. So whenever we were diving into these songs, when we potentially play, it was kind of a new thing for me. And it's turned into kind of I'm not going to say it's like the most fun part of the set, but it's kind of the relaxed set. Like in DevilDriver, we spent so much time trying to play fast, play hard, play heavy, whatever it is. And then the Cold Chamber songs are kind of these fun, bouncy, I see the nostalgia on people's faces. It's kind of like I mean, the relaxing part is also the wrong word. I wish I could think of the right word to say for what it is, but
I was going to say, I'm sure it is, as far as the technical capabilities that need to go into it, it's a little bit more easier to kind of go into autopilot mode and just have fun with it.
It is, yes, 100%. And then that's not to say anything about the musicianship of the Cold Chamber guys. I mean, they have gold and I believe platinum records, so that speaks for themselves. But yeah, it's definitely like let's sit back for at least, you know, this and start thinking about how we're going to get back into guitar playing mode for Clouds Over California next, you know.
Speaking of that, actually, I've been noticing Desmond posting a bunch of snippets of one of his sons doing a lot of vocal covers, and it kind of makes me wonder. I feel like we're almost getting set up for another like Soulfly 1 record, where Max obviously has his kids on that record and has had his kids on the various records and so forth. Is that what we're kind of gearing up to? Is getting some more Fafaras on some DevilDriver music here?
I would love that. I mean, it hasn't happened yet. I don't think we're quite at that stage where, you know, and obviously we're not recording right now. So, I would love for that to happen in the future. Simon sounds great. He came out to rehearsals for this just to kind of mess around with us, and he sang with. I think he did Clouds with us at practice. Sounded great. We kind of left it at that. You know, we'll kind of see what's going on. We just got so focused on this tour and what we're doing now that it's, you know, maybe in the future, I guess, is the best succinct way to put it.
It's just been interesting to see it and seeing a lot of, I mean, it's the internet, so this is going to happen, but just seeing all the shit talking of people being like, that's fake. And it's like,
sure.
Like, okay.
It's most definitely not. And I wouldn't really mind telling you. But he's great. I mean, it's also that youth, man. He's young. He wants it bad. He sounds great.
You know, kind of, you know, I wanted to hit on, obviously you guys are on what is basically a memorial tour for Wayne for the Static X camp. What, you know, I'd imagine between, you know, Des obviously having ties in the Cold Chamber days to everyone that's on the tour, what have been kind of some of the stories maybe, or the memories you've been getting to be around hearing stories about Wayne? Because I know, like, the Grand Rapids date, I know Wayne's parents and family were out at that date. They live about an hour or so away. And so I just, you know, I feel like there's a lot of, you know, you weren't on these tours, you didn't know Wayne probably, but to be able to be so ensconced in a legacy of Wayne and Static X and all that kind of stuff, I feel like you're probably getting inundated with a lot of great stories and memories.
I wish a little more. You said it. I didn't know Wayne. I wasn't touring at the time that Static X toured. So I think most of those people are saving those stories for Tony and the rest of the dudes in Static X, and of course Des. But I'm getting to see it at least every night. You know, go in and have a beer after our set and watch a couple songs. And you know, there's always crying, but it always seems like a happy cry. You know, without commenting on it too much, I kind of wondered how this would all play out, because if you looked at it in the wrong way, you could see this as a disservice, I guess, in some eyes, but it's completely not, and it's coming from a place of love. And I think everybody coming out to the shows, at least that I've seen, are seeing that and feeling that and loving it.
Yeah, I would say, admittedly, two of the bigger headlines you probably have heard about this tour before it even started, they came from the show. That aside, though, having been in the room, it was really interesting because like I think something I wasn't really sure how it was going to go is I didn't having seen Static X in the last iteration of the band and seeing how kind of piss poor the attendance was, it was kind of one of those things I was like, I guess people don't care. And you know, especially when the material kind of leaned heavier on the Wisconsin Death Trip stuff. And so I really didn't expect it to do as well as it is doing. And I think it's an testament to the music that Static X put out, but the fact that people wanted to experience this experience live again. And I think it's really weird because, like, you know, being around some people who were like, I haven't seen most of this package. Like, I haven't seen Dez since the Cold Chamber days. I haven't seen Dope in 15 years. I haven't seen Static X since like 2007. You know, you have a lot of people who it almost felt like don't really go to shows anymore. We're coming out to this, and it definitely had this aura, I should say, of being something that, you know, everyone wanted to see for one band or another, but that there's just this moment, and it's like I haven't felt that in a room in a while, like where a show is important, if that makes any sense.
Sure, yeah, it does. I'm remembering a story now to actually go back on your question of do you have any specific stories, but it kind of happens to what you just said. There was we were somewhere in Canada on this tour, and there was a guy out in the back, and I was doing the whole thing where we just played, and I was grabbing a beer, and I was going to go walk in and watch a few songs. There's a guy with an obviously broken ankle out there, and he's like, "Oh man, I haven't been to a concert in so long. I haven't done this." You know, exactly what you just said. He's like, I haven't seen Dope in forever. And then he looked straight at me and he goes, I mean, I see DevilDriver like twice a year, so whatever. But then, he didn't know who it was. It maybe is because we play that place in Canada too much. Maybe that's what that means. But then he went on to say, but he's like, I know I should probably go to the doctor, right? I'm like, you absolutely should go to the hospital right now. You can't walk. Yeah, you have like a volleyball in your ankle at this point. And he was like, there's no way I'm missing that Static set. No way. I'm like, all right, man. All right, you get it. And then I saw him hobble back in, you know, and that I'm seeing a lot of that as well on this tour.
I think it's been something, you know, kind of thinking about my experience the other night at the show, but then also kind of thinking of a few DevilDriver shows I've been to. I mean, you guys seemingly do this. I don't know if it's intentional, but it's like when you guys were on that run with 36 Crazy Fists, like about a year and a half ago, I think it was at this point. And it's just like, you know, having, you know, Kyle is a friend. And it's like, I remember talking to him about the tour and he goes, it's really weird. Like, you know, we just got off this Killswitch tour at the time and, you know, now we're doing this DevilDriver run, but so many people are coming up to us and be like, man, I haven't seen you in like 15 years. I didn't even know you were still a band. And it's like, shit. But it's funny that you guys seemingly kind of pick bands, you know, that kind of, and honor their legacy of being around and being road dogs and being committed to being out and putting them in front of your fans. You know, like you're saying, maybe you hit a spot too many times, but you always bring unique package tours or whatever with you and always kind of honor the legacy of bands that have come, you know, grew up with you guys and so forth. And I always think it's kind of commendable, you know, that you're able to do that.
Well, thanks. Yeah. I mean, that's an important part. We, if you can't tell by the schedule, we love being on the road. Of course, it's a little bit of a sweet with family at home, but we love doing it and couldn't imagine doing anything else. And we love taking out bands that we've toured with before, even bands that DevilDriver toured with before I was even in the band. But it also comes to new bands that we hear about that are grinding, and we seek out those bands. We're like, hey, well, you guys want to jump on this with us, you know? Because it not only does it help a tour package to have everybody like-minded, like, yes, we're here, we're on the road, we're doing this together. That of course keeps, you know, any kind of fighting or anything else to a minimum. But it also, I think people can see that in a package as they watch the show. Man, these guys are here. You know, they're here maybe they're a party band. They're here to fucking party tonight. Maybe they're just here to kick ass. Maybe they're just here to emote, whatever it is. But I think that the passion and just the overall will and want to be on the road shines through if you have every band like-minded, you know, on the show.
Absolutely. I think that was kind of the other theme that I noticed, is that it seemed like everyone, you know, maybe doesn't have, you know, at least in the package tour sense, like you guys are putting out a covers record, have the new record coming up soon. But it's like Dope, I don't think has put out anything out in a couple years. Static X obviously hasn't put anything out. So it's kind of like you're really relying on people coming out and wanting to perform the songs that they probably have been playing for a long time and still not not going through the motions in it.
Right, yep.
Shifting gears a little bit again, just because, like I said, I'm old, and a band that I remembered you for and from, and I wanted to kind of talk on since we're speaking nostalgic, is Burn Halo.
Yeah.
18 Visions is one of those bands, I think if you're around my age, like mid-30s or so, 18 Visions was one of those like undeniable bands, got a lot of people into hardcore, especially that kind of Orange County West Coast hardcore. And when James left and kind of started Burn Halo, I know a lot of people were kind of not exactly sure what it was going to be. But, I kind of wanted to just kind of pick your brain a minute and be like, what was the experience of starting Burn Halo like for you?
It was really fun at the time. So at the time I was living in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I was a session guitar player at a studio called Brewtallyspeaking Studio. And the guy who ran that at the time, his name is Zach Malloy. He's now a huge songwriter out in Nashville. But I want to say that James, through the label, through whoever he was on, I think it was Def Jam Island, sent him out there just to write and record. It's like, look, we have this budget. What do you want to do with it? James wanted to do, Heartland rock, red state rock, whatever you want to call it. This normal heartbeat of America rock is what he wanted to do. As you can kind of see that transition a little bit in like the last 18 Visions record. Like there's a lot of Def Leppard influence on there that I loved. A lot of people hate it because it's not hardcore, but he wanted to take it, not just another step. He wanted to run a mile with it and see where he could go. And so I was working at the studio, and we just kind of hit it off, and it ended up writing. It's like, hey man, do you have any riffs? I was just there to do session. I was just there to be like, hey, tell me to play, I'll play it kind of thing.
Right.
He was like, do you have any riffs? Like, sure. And then ended up writing, I think it's like a third of the songs on there. And from there, we didn't do a lot. I mean, we did a couple showcases on both coasts, and I never even toured with them before I got offered into what I did next. But yeah, it was awesome. It was the start of a great friendship. I'm actually, as soon as I get home, I'm going to go celebrate his birthday with him.
Oh, awesome! I know he looks like they're recording presumably a follow up to the last record that they just put out. But I secretly almost wanted to be like, it'd be really cool if it was a Burn Halo record that no one was expecting.
I can tell you here first that it is not another Burn Halo record.
Would that be something that you would be into doing? Kind of, obviously James does music very part-time when the schedule permits and so forth. So, I mean, would that be in the case? Like, would that be something you would even be interested in doing, is kind of getting back together, starting to write, or maybe even just, since the camaraderie is there and just the ease of being able to write with each other is there, just maybe start doing something completely different?
That would be, of course I'd be interested in that. But yeah, like I said, he's one of my better friends in life, and it all started from that. But I would jump at the opportunity to do anything with him. I think Burn Halo actually went on without him, so I don't know that if he even legally could go out as Burn Halo anymore.
Well, you go out as Halo Burns.
Yeah, something. I mean, if it were up to me, it would be something completely new and different, whatever we would come up with. But yeah, I would love to.
Yeah, it's something as like I said, an older person that follows a lot of band people from like, oh, they were in this band I like, and then I guess they're doing this other thing, I'm gonna follow them into that. It was like, I thought your name when you joined DevilDriver, everyone was like talking about all these other bands. I was like, I swear I recognize that name from something, and I just can't put my fucking finger on it. And then a quick Google search as I was kind of preparing for some interviews to see what you had been asked already about this tour and so forth, popped up the Burn Halo thing. I was like, there it is. That was what it was from.
Yeah. No, it's kind of refreshing. No one ever asked me about the other stuff I've done. But yeah, when I first started in DevilDriver, I wondered which things everybody would latch onto. Like in the press-wise, it's not like I'm some huge big deal, but at least when they're announcing a new member, I wondered what they were going to talk about. And it was like Burn Halo, and then I think Hell or High Water was the second one that they would announce as interesting ones to pick.
Well, I was going to say, I know in talking with Brandon, we posted it about 2 weeks ago, but we did the interview on Cinco de Mayo when the Atreyu dudes were in the same room you guys were in. And, just talking about how well everyone associated with Hell or High Water has done for themselves outside of that band. Like, the fact that Joey now is the guitar player for The Used and Brandon obviously still doing Atreyu. And like, just, it seems like anybody associated with that band just has gone on to have massive success in a different aspect of the industry other than that band.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of sad that we didn't get to spend more time with that original lineup. I mean, I think they're still kicking around. It's just, a couple new members, but yeah, we're all pretty fortunate after that one.
Well, I'm trying to remember, because technically Black Cloud Collective was Brandon as a solo thing, and then as you explained it, it was then the Hired Guns, which I think you were a part of, and then that's when he decided to change the name and make it more of an entity as a full band.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, it was. I think we did. He did maybe 2 shows without me at the very beginning, where actually Ken from 18 Visions was playing with him. To loop all that together, but and then I got on board, and we did a tour as Black Cloud Collective, and then I think only one, and then we switched the name.
It's always funny, like, to see, because to me, like, knowing that you're more in that realm of stuff. I guess this will kind of be one of my last questions for you. Is that something that you try to bring to DevilDriver, like more of the, I would say, pop rock sensibilities to more of a more straight ahead aggressive metal sound?
No, not really. No, I mean, if I'm asked, which I have been asked to do that in this band, like on a song or two here, maybe it's more not necessarily like a lighter, like a less dark tone or something, but more like how would you arrange this part if we were going to think in a more radio-minded way? That's probably the way that it works. But I mean, like I said before, I've always wanted to do metal. I've always looked for this gig, and that's since I've never been able to be in a metal band. The last thing I wanted to do is join a metal band and be like, hey, why don't we soften it up? That wasn't the idea from the beginning,
Right. I just didn't know if that was something that like Des and them try to take advantage of, is the fact that you're able to do that probably a little easier than most.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think in arrangements, yes, but not so much anything else. I mean, he has asked me for little vocal ideas here and there, but he mainly just does it himself,
Absolutely. Well, last question for you. Well, I guess it's a 2-parter, but last question. What does the rest of 2019 hold for you, and where can people find you and or the band online?
Oh, nice. The rest of 2019 is shaping up to just tour. We've got do this till the end of the month, and then we have a couple days home. Then we go to Australia for the rest of August. Then I think mid-September we're back in Europe for a little bit, and then we ended off with the second leg of this tour. Which I don't know that that's officially announced, but there you go. The second leg of this tour is I think it's November, early December kind of dates. They're out there, and then that'll be it for the year. But yeah, the best way to find us is just the Facebook, DevilDriver Facebook, or DevilDriver.com. Specifically me, you can go to nftmusic.com, and that's it. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for taking the time, and hopefully maybe we'll see you around at another show.
I hope so. Thank you.
So that was my conversation with Neal of DevilDriver. Covered a lot of different stuff there. First and foremost, this interview was supposed to happen at the show. The Static X, DevilDriver, Dope. What's the other band? Raven Black. Sorry, and Wednesday 13. I forget those two were on the show because I was busy doing an interview with AC Slade. I kind of like the fact that it's like, the hard part about having somebody on at this point in a touring cycle is you're supporting something that's a year old at this point, and you're not really supporting it in the traditional sense of like, hey, we're playing songs off of this, because unfortunately a lot of it had other guests on those songs they're obviously not there, so that doesn't really do anything. So you're not supporting that record. Trust No One has been out for 3 years. You're definitely not supporting that. And the new record isn't, if a single hasn't even been dropped, so you're not even able to talk about that in any way, shape, or form because there's no release date, no album title, no track listings, no single, no nothing. So it's like this is kind of one of those things where it's kind of the sweet spot, I think, to get people, because then you can just have weird conversations about random shit. Like, I mean, the fact that I was like, is Dez grooming us for a new Soulfly kind of thing, like where we're bringing in the young blood into the band?
It's entirely possible. I mean, I've got it on good authority that he just makes really good barbecue.
Who's that?
Dez.
I'm stumped there. I have no idea. I don't know how to respond to that.
Well, according to DevilDriver's Wikipedia page,
okay,
the way
right.
Dez recruited musicians for DevilDriver originally was basically by having barbecues and inviting people over, and it's one of those like, hey, do you like those pork steaks? Yeah, good. I got a good recipe from Burton C. Bell from Fear Factory, and he makes amazing pork steaks. Also, by the way, you want to join DevilDriver? Yeah. It's probably one of those like, hey, I got a whole band set up in my basement. You guys want to just
come over?
Just want to see if you guys have what it takes.
Well, I think it's interesting in this day and age, like one of Tommy Lee's kids now, and Pam Anderson's, I guess, technically, is on The Hills, the reboot, which my wife watches that terrible show.
Quality television.
Oh my God, the best. And it's one of those things where, a lot of times you see famous musicians' kids not really follow in their parents' footsteps. And, with social media being the way it is, I don't think we've really seen anyone do like Dez, where he's putting it on like his socials, like his son covering his own songs and being like, This is no studio trickery. This is just straight up how he is and so forth. And I wasn't exactly sure what the point of it was. I mean, Dez obviously owns a very successful band music management company and Oracle Management. I mean, who actually is managing Static X and a handful of other bands that are on this tour. But it is one of those things where it makes me wonder, like, okay, in the day and age where basically any Cavalera band is consisting of at least no less than 10 Cavaleras,
right.
That it makes me wonder if, like, that's what we're being groomed for, is, like, in the day and age where Corey Taylor just made a headline going, like, Slipknot could go on without me, and you see bands like Kiss going on, and their whole thing has been like, oh, we would like to make Kiss a brand, where it's like there are a couple of different Kiss tribute acts that we have licensed to be us. So the music will always live on forever. That it's like, is this a weird thing that maybe that Dez is like trying to get ahead of, where it's like maybe there gets to a point where like he doesn't do DevilDriver, but hey, you know what, my son's gonna do it.
Yeah, and it's entirely possible. Although back on the Max Cavalera thing, he's breeding an army. We really need to watch out for that.
And they're in Arizona, so they're near the Area 51 over there.
Right. So 100,000 people.
Yes, everything is.
I'm sorry, I just have nothing. I have nothing brilliant to say about that at all. I'm just like, wow.
But no, and it was kind of cool for Neal to kind of be like, actually, he came to the practice spot and ran over clouds over California, and everything's real. Like everything you see is exactly how you see it, and it's not fake. It's not whatever. So I mean, I would be kind of interested to see a father-son kind of moment, or just have the dude come straight up and do Clouds Over California and a couple other songs and just go. It was weird because I think I touched on this a couple episodes ago and I said I would. The show as a whole, the Static X dope DevilDriver show, was really weird. And not for the reasons that I had premonitions of, and some of the talks we've had with like Sal from A Pale Horse Named After, Typo Negative, and Frankie from Amir from all those months ago. But it was just weird because it's full of people who I don't think have gone to shows in like since outside of DevilDriver, since any of these bands have been relevant, if that makes sense.
I agree, and I get a similar vibe. I haven't been to that show yet, but I've definitely gone and seen tours similar to this. And if you don't mind me sharing, oh my God, another Dan Terry band story, from back in the day. So I remember back in St. Louis, there was this place on the Del Mar Loop called the Red Sea, and we used to play there all the time. And we ended up on a show with like kind of a bigger local band from St. Louis called Shattermask, and they were like hard to describe, kind of like a Mudvayne, type of band or whatever, and like we were. I remember us showing up to load gear in, and the place was already starting to fill up, and which means we showed up late, but we were we were basically the opening band for the show, and we get up there in our like tight jeans and belt buckle, our Norma Jean belt buckles and Under Oath shirts and stuff, and we're up there playing, and like our keyboard driven hardcore or whatever you want to call it. And I'm looking out at the audience members, and it's like walking into a Hot Topic in like 1999. Like it was really strange. Even this is like 2006, because I remember being like, "Oh my God, did we just like travel back in time?" But you could tell that we hadn't really traveled back in time, because the people there were like in their late 30s, like 40s, and like Jinko jeans everywhere, wallet chains everywhere. Everybody's got like they bought those like cheap hair dyes, like the spray can hair dyes, and so everybody's got like translucent blue hair and pink hair and stuff, and like all the band members in Shattermask are like definitely got beer bellies, and they're like starting to go bald and stuff. And I remember just looking over my guitarist and being like, we better get out of here, because they did not like us at all. Like it was it was definitely, because I was like, oh man, we're really gonna play to a pretty packed crowd here, and they're just looking at us like, the people were yelling like, get the emo off the stage, and all this stuff, and it was like so crazy. And I would imagine that this is exactly what you're feeling at these Static X DevilDriver shows. Not so much the DevilDriver fans, but the Static X crowd has got to definitely have come out of their 9-to-5 woodwork and added quite a bit. Like really padded the crowd out in a way that you probably weren't expecting. And I don't know, it just really reminds me of that, because that's something that people have been saying for a while, that it's been like that. And it just blows my mind that even like 10, 12 years ago, I definitely was still getting the same vibes. And like these are probably the same people, only like aged now like 7 to 8 years. And it's so funny how I'm going to look at like a Hope's Fall show in 2020.
I think part of it was just like, excuse me, I'm not saying I agree with the new like demographic of people who are going to shows now, where like the young kids who are like, oh, don't touch me, don't be like within a 10-foot radius of me, like I need my personal bubble, all this kind of shit. I'm totally fine with being around people. I think my problem is like that era of going to shows was like people just didn't give a fuck about anyone near them. It was just about being, bodies on bodies on bodies. And sometimes I don't mind that, but I do like that a lot of times now when I go to shows, like when I go, like a case, like I went in that same room and saw City and Color, and I know it's a completely different demographic, so I understand that. But the point is, I have been in that room for plenty of sold out shows, and City and Color had just as many people, but like you could make your way around pretty close to the stage actually. And it wasn't sweaty, it wasn't gross feeling, but like there was something about that show, and I don't know if it's just the sheer body mass of the individual people that was much bigger than most of the shows I go to. But I mean, most of these people now are, the youngest would be our age, and the oldest would probably be put another 10, 15 years on us. So you're looking at people who are like almost 60 at this point going to these shows. And what's funny is on paper, like, or not even on paper, like when I was at the show, here comes, might just be Dope's frontman, I don't know. Edsel Dope looking actually pretty lean and cut.
I've heard vehemently that it's not him.
Yeah, you know what?
Maybe that's what people that were. Maybe that's what he wants everyone to think.
I will say this: two to three things on that. I ended up having drinks, as I said earlier, at the bar because this interview was supposed to happen the day of and then got canceled. I happened to be having drinks with someone who apparently was on the tour. I made mention of the fact that I was there for an interview with AC earlier, like a little bit later, and he was like, "Oh, I've been on the tour. AC's really great." Blah 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 blah. And I go, "Yeah, I was hoping to get an interview with Edsel." But I was like, I assume he's super busy, getting ready for 2 sets, or allegedly getting ready for 2 sets and all this kind of other stuff. And the guy just simply put his finger on the tip of his nose. So I kind of took that to be that I'm not wrong, I'm not right. He's just going to say, take that how you will. The other thing is oddly enough, he comes out, his hair's wet, and it's longer than I've seen it in a long time. And so I kind of kept looking at the hair length and going like, this might be because my friend used to put up his hair every single day, and had tall, very tall hair, a la Wayne. And I know what kind of products he had to put in there to do that day in and day out. And so I kind of was looking at it and I go, I bet you just got done taking a shower because you got to the venue a couple hours ago. It's the first shower you've had maybe, that you're able to get to, wash all that shit out from the night before, and get ready for this one. But I couldn't help but notice that the hair length seemed pretty dead on for how tall Zero's hair is. And the other thing that I don't think a lot of people know about Edsel is that he actually is a pretty proficient guitar player. Writes a lot of dope stuff. And so there's that, because a lot of people are like, well, Edsel doesn't play guitar. Well, actually he does.
Well, okay. Let me ask you this. How did you feel about the death mask? Is how I've heard it described from people that have been on the tour.
Full transparency, I did not stay for any of the Static X set.
Really?
It was just so...
No curiosity?
It was just too hot. I mean, I'm like, and the thing is like, I made the joke, I made a post on Facebook, and you made a reference to it a couple episodes ago about how I made the comment like, oh, the Intersection can't afford to have their AC. Part of that joke that I made, that they would blame it on the band people or somebody else on the tour, is anytime I've seen bands there that sound less than, top notch, there is a person who I don't like that works at that venue. They shall remain nameless. But they will go out of their way when people are like, oh, this band sucks. And people are like, yeah, that was actually the worst I've ever heard, X band. And he'll be like, well, they had a touring sound person. It was them. And it's like, well, it still was all of your shit that they sounded like shit through. So like, and it's pretty shitty that a venue person is going to come through and be like, it was the person, not the venue. And it's like, dude,
it sounds really suspicious. Like nobody said it was the venue, but now you're like offering that information.
This person has done that a handful of times, and it's always shitty. But one day, like, people were bitching about lack of AC, and someone was like, oh, it was this, it was that, it was whatever. But I mean, this venue does a lot of EDM shows that sell out that fucking main room, 1,800 cap plus, consistently. So it's like, I know that they're not hurting for money to make renovations that they have been doing all over the venue over the last, 2 years. But the thing that it comes to me is that it's like, I just don't understand why you wouldn't even, like, that, like, a really great example. So remember that show we did with Chris Garza of Suicide Silence, and you could hear all of Attila's set? Well, it's because it was so fucking hot, they opened every door on the side of the building, like all the shutter doors that are for, like, load-in and so forth. They opened all of those to, like, bring in cool air when the AC was broke. So it's like, I have an example of a show where the AC wasn't working, and you did that to rectify how hot it was getting, yet here we are in the middle of summer, and it's, like, stupidly hot, like, over, like, almost 100 degrees, and you keep all the doors shut, you have no AC, there's literally sweat coming off of the walls, like, it's unbearable. It was like, you walk in the door and it's a solid, like, 15 to 20 degrees hotter, and then it's like, if you get any closer to the stage than the soundboard, which, I mean, almost any venue, you're looking at another 35 feet, usually or so, that it turns into one of those things. It's like, it's just unbearable. And then for whatever reason, metal seemingly has like the tallest motherfuckers in the whole genre of any music. So it's like, I'm 5'7", so like everyone's taller in front of me and I can't see shit, and it's hot and it's gross, and people are like rubbing their gross sweaty bodies on me, and it's like, dude, I'm just done. This was what it was. And it's the other shitty thing, is that, like, I didn't pay for a ticket, so I was like, whatever. I hung out with friends, most of the day, and, we all were in agreement that it was like, it's just too hot to be in here for this, and it's about to get way hotter, because, like, Static X uses a shitload of lights, and those LED walls and so forth, and we had a friend stay, and she was like, it was pretty brutal.
Yeah.
just from the heat alone. So I mean, maybe if you have the opportunity to see it in a nice air-conditioned venue or something, but I mean, that's totally the me. I'm old, get off my lawn. I like to be a little bit more comfortable for my shows. I don't really participate in pits anymore. I'm out of shape for pit shape anyway. I also realize that, sometimes, like, that one dude who's trying to be super aggro and pushes me when I'm not really even in the pit, and it makes me like kind of snap my neck forward and all that shit. It's like, I don't really want to like get hurt because someone's a dickhead.
Yeah, I understand that. I just didn't know if it was out of some sort of, because I mean, you've been very vocal since this whole thing was announced, and I thought it was really interesting because I was listening to one of the latest Roach Coach episodes, and Lauren and Jenny had gone to see the show, and their collective response was, they got a couple of songs in, and for some reason they're just like, I don't know, it just didn't feel, it feels wrong. Like, it just, they felt that the Death Mask was, a little disrespectful. I'm not putting words in their mouth, so you can go listen to the episode. But
I think the biggest, to me, disrespectful thing about it to me, and I think maybe this is just my hang up and my cross to bear with it, is obviously when you do a tour, you make merch for the tour you're on. And obviously with this being 20 years of Wisconsin Death Trip, a lot of the stuff was based on that first record and the merch kind of coming back from that first record and so forth. But they also had a lot of merch recreating kind of the look of Wisconsin Death Trip, but with zero, like the promo photos with zero in it. And I'm like,
yeah,
that pissed me off, where I'm like, if this is about memorializing Wayne and a tribute to Wayne, shouldn't everything just be the old Static X promo photos from Wisconsin Death Trip? Personally,
it really, yeah. I mean, that's how I feel about it, because I think there are diehard Static X fans that just want to see the band live, and I totally understand that. But like, holograms are a thing. But it's one of those like, even like a hologram type thing would be more respectful to Wayne, and that it would still be like Wayne singing the songs. But I guess the thing that bugs me about it is that, like,
well, the fact that they even use Wayne's backing tracks kind of bothers me a little bit too. Like, at that point, it's like, do we really need to go with this whole dead mass thing? Like, can't it just be somebody? Fuck it. Like, in the day and age, like you're saying, where there's holograms, fucking Metalocalypse has done interesting ways. The fucking Gorillaz have done stuff. Like, there are a couple of different ways. Like, you could have a body on stage playing guitar, but put like a kabuki screen in front of him or something, and have like footage of Wayne playing these songs that you probably have amassed over the last couple of years or decades, and do something like that, and at least be like, yeah, we have someone on stage playing. And I'm sure there's plenty of, fuck it, if you're going to use Wayne's backing tracks as it is, then just fucking throw his like recorded vocals and just have a band on stage, the band playing the songs with the pre-recorded track. Like, at that point, I don't even think I would mind that. But like, the fact that you have someone in the videos I've seen of this person mimicking some of Wayne's like movements when playing guitar and shit, it just weirds me out. I'm just not a fan of it.
It just feels wrong to me, and that's the thing. And I think the Death Mask, again, I think right now there are diehard Static X fans that are like, I want to see the band live. I want to hear these songs. I think it's cool that they have somebody up there singing in Wayne's place. But I think like the people that showed up at the show and bought all the merch that had zero on it and all that, I wonder how they're gonna feel about that, like in a few years, whenever they look back on it and they're like, like I feel like collectively people are going to be like, that really wasn't that cool.
Yeah, I don't know. Kind of bringing it back to the guest of this episode, though. It was kind of cool talking with Neal. I was kind of hoping he would have a little bit more stories of this tour and having people kind of, talk more stories about Wayne. But like I said, the show that, this tour is relatively young still, and the fact that the show that came through here, Wayne's parents were at, but it is just, I don't know, this show is kind of interesting, and I'm not, obviously, the ticket sales are there. They just announced the second leg, as you heard Neal say in this interview. It wasn't announced yet when we talked, but as of when we're recording this now, the dates just officially got announced for the second leg of this tour, hitting a lot of B and C markets. I think they're hitting Australia or Europe. I know they're hitting overseas. I wouldn't be surprised with the way that this tour is selling if you're not looking at least another leg or two of this. They're probably going to stretch this out. And then, let's not forget they're doing that other record with the last parts of Wayne's recorded vocals. That's probably coming around. So then I assume we're going to get this. we're going to get another tour with the same band.
Milk it.
Well, I mean, at that point, it's like, okay, so like, do you then announce who your singer is, and it is what it is, or is Zero just going to be this long-standing thing that keeps, Static X going, where you have this weird Wayne-looking thing?
I don't know, and it's one of those, like, if they do finish the album, they do a tour, and they do all that crap, like, are they going to record a new album with Zero? Because at that point, it's like, the mask's got to come off at that point.
Well, I was even thinking, too...
I mean, I guess not. The masks never came off of Slipknot, but, they kind of did.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, kind of in wrapping up on this whole Static X thing, if they end up... I just think it's weird. They started a GoFundMe or whatever, Pledge Music or whatever the fuck it was, for this record that was going to have all these guests. And then basically they apparently found more backing tracks or something, or more tracks than they thought they were going to. So now it's just going to be... I think there's only 2 people that are going to be on this, or maybe 1 guest that's going to be on this record. So then it makes me wonder, like... Okay, so you put out this record, it's got Wayne on it. I assume we're going to do another tour because this one's been so fucking successful. Do people even want another record after this next one? And or are fans going to feel slighted for not getting the record that they were propositioned with initially?
I don't know, man. I think... Obviously, like, there's my personal opinion that, like, I don't want that. But I guess on the same token, I'm wrong about everything. So, like, I said that As I Lay Dying was never going to come back. So, there's that. And so, yeah, I would say that I don't really want that. I don't know what the average Static X fan wants. Like, this whole thing with Zero and the tour or whatever, like, I guess from a certain perspective, it's cool that it exists, but because it's, like, the best you're going to get. But at the same time, like, I don't know. Sometimes things just aren't possible. Like, have you ever, like, if you look at, like, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, where the little girl's all like, Daddy, I want a golden goose. And the dad goes, how much for the golden goose, Wonka? And he's like, and Wonka just goes, it's not for sale. She can't have it. I kind of feel like that's the weird thing about our culture and society right now, is that, like, everybody wants the golden goose. Like, everybody wants this unattainable thing. You can't have a Static X tour without Wayne Static, and that's just the way it is, and it sucks, and it just is what it is. And so I feel like this, at very best, is just going to be a pale kind of reflection of what Static X was. And like I say, well, I'll drop it after this. We won't go on and on and on and on for episode after episode about it. But
so
it just
safe
seems
to say that Static X has become the new As I Lay Dying for us.
I hope not. I hope it's not that way. I don't know. I guess I'll ask him in my next 5 interviews. Like, so what do you think about this Static X thing?
Well, I don't know.
Hey,
sorry.
if it comes up, it comes up.
Yeah. So apologies for that long tangent. I know, like I said, we teased a little bit of my going to the show and my experience of going to the show. I mean, the bummer part is by all accounts, everyone seems like the tour, as far as the people on the tour, it's been really great. The camaraderie has been at an all-time high. Everyone gets along. So, I mean, from that aspect, I love the fact that this tour is doing what it's doing. It's bringing people out that maybe haven't come around in a while. I definitely heard a lot of people going like, "Oh, I haven't been to a Dope show since like 1998," or I haven't seen DevilDriver in 7 or 8 years, and even though DevilDriver tours consistently, so I don't know how that's fucking possible. But anything, I just heard a lot of people saying that they were coming out for the first time in a long time, and that's awesome. However, I kind of wish it was under different circumstances or a different presentation or something. I don't know. I can't put my finger on it, but I'm just a little. I still feel like there's too many things that scream this is being done the wrong way to me, and I don't necessarily know what the right way is in this. We don't have too many examples of this happening. I mean, Slipknot, I guess, would kind of be the closest. Soundgarden's not going on. They're looking at least to finish up what they have, but I don't think the plan is to like find a new person. Stone Temple Pilots, but like they've kind of they haven't really put out new material, so I guess they're kind of the closest that's doing this thing of like going out. But like that Scott Weiland obviously is the sound that we have. I mean, you look at a band, I guess Queen, they've never gotten over Freddie Mercury. There's no way you fucking can. And Journey, no, they haven't gotten over Steve Perry. I mean, anybody they've gotten has always tried to sound like Steve Perry. So I mean, I guess there are actually more examples than I thought of off the top of my head of bands trying to hold on to the past in any way, shape, or form that they can. So I guess this isn't as new as I made it seem, but it just, the way they've been going about it just feels so wrong. It just feels, everything feels wrong, from how long it took to do this to the way they're doing it. But I guess at the end of the day, fans are voting with their dollar, and they're voting in droves. So,
well, to that point though, all the bands you mentioned have always done something respectable, in that they tried to move on. You know what I mean? Like Queen didn't take somebody that sounded like Freddie Mercury and put a Freddie Mercury death mask on him, and
No.
have, like that is the thing that bothers me the most. And like I realize that like a death mask probably isn't that offensive to like Static X fans. And I have to admit, I don't even know if Wayne would have cared one way or the other, you know, or if he would have thought it was funny or not. I don't know. But it just, I realize that like the death mask probably fits in just fine with the Static X imagery is what I'm saying. But there's still a certain human element to it where I'm like, no, this isn't right. And that's just me trying to be the moral authority on it. And maybe I'm totally wrong, but I can't change how I feel about it.
right. Well, let's wrap this up as best we can at this point.
But DevilDriver's a great band.
DevilDriver is great, and they played a great set, and they even tapped into some Cold Chamber songs, as you heard Neal and I talking about. Those are going over great. So, I mean, you know, go see the show, go support all the bands. I mean, by all accounts, the show is great. Looks great. It sounds great. Even though I didn't stick around for Static X, I've seen plenty of the videos that are going around. It looks like a really great show. I just personally was not feeling like being in that room anymore, so I just left. But all that aside, if you would like to keep up with DevilDriver, stupidly simple. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, DevilDriver. If you would like to keep up with Neal, you can find him on Instagram at Neal, FINGTIEMANN. And I don't know, maybe we'll see a new collaboration down the road with him and James Hart, and maybe we will even see some new Hell or High Water stuff. I know we kind of touched on that a couple of times over the last couple episodes as well. And if you've never checked out Hell or High Water, I think you should. Obviously, the fact that the guitar player now from that band is in the guitar player of the Use. Brandon obviously is from Atreyu. Neal is in, DevilDriver. And one of the dudes is like a fucking big engineer that worked with John Feldman. I mean, everybody is a fucking just a genius that works in this band. So check them out. I think you might actually like what they do. So it's not DevilDriver, it's not Atreyu, it's not really any of those parts, but it is all of those things too. Check them out. And if you'd like to keep up with Metal Nexus, you can find them at metalnexus.net, Facebook at Metal Nexus, Instagram at metal.nexus, and Twitter at metal_nexus. And Dan will tell you where he can be found.
I can be found on Facebook under Daniel Terry. I can be found on Twitter at DiscussMetalDan. You can send me an email if you feel like it at discussmetaldan@gmail.com. And you can always find my other podcast, Discography Discussion, at discussmetal.com.
And if you would like to keep up with everything this podcast, you can find us simply enough. Brew Speak Pod, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Find us on YouTube at Brew Speak Pod or Brewtally Speaking. If you would like to email us, you can do such at brewtallyspeaking@gmail.com. Check out our show sponsor, The Bean Bastard, at thebeanbastard.com. Facebook and Instagram at The Bean Bastard. And for the Brewtally Speaking podcast, I am John.
And I am Dan.
And we will talk to you all next time.